just want to look at briefly on what we call self-management. Yes, I'm aware of certain things about me. Yes, I've listened to the feedback, observations of people about me, how I come across to others. Then how do I choose to, if I want to do things differently or respond differently? How do I do that? Because knowing is not enough. We have to do. So that's the topic this morning. We're talking about self-management. That's our ability, to manage our triggers, our ability to bring ourselves, together and act in a way that aligns with our values. Really, that's what we're talking about in terms of self-management. Is it even possible at all? Okay, for someone to contain their emotions, avoid acting impulsively, make good decisions, know when to walk away. All these things, are they possible? Are they things people can change? If you have been doing things in a particular way over the years, do you think that it's still possible for me to say, okay, let me choose a different response? What we have come to see with working with people is that even sometimes when people honestly desire to do things differently, some people may not find it as simple as or as easy as they think to move to change how they respond to situations, because they've been responding to issues or situations in that same way over a period of time or all their life. And sometimes people may not even know there's a different way of responding to situations. So after understanding or realizing or having gotten feedback from people, there are things you have tried to change or respond differently, and how easy was that, and how have you managed to cope in that area of self-management? So self-awareness, we say self-awareness precedes self-management, right? So I'm aware. Okay, sometimes we are aware and we don't care. We are not, but I'm happy the way I am. That's fine. As long as it's by choice and you are happy, you are fulfilled, that's where you want to be. That's fine. There's nothing, you can't change, it can't force an adult to change. But if this way of responding or reacting to situation is, disruptive, whether it's likely to can put you in a difficult situation. That's really the challenge here, because maybe you have been getting away with certain behaviors over the years. It hasn't put you in a difficult. It haven't cost you anything, and because of that, you may think it's okay. But inside you, or you desire to do it differently. It's not okay. Maybe causing issues between you and the family and your family members. It could be between you and your colleagues at work, people you meet on the road. You're always having maybe issues. Um, if there's any way of responding or reacting to situations, particularly when you find yourself in a particular situation and that you want to change, how possible is that? Have you seen people change? Is it possible? How have we managed these things we know about us that we want to change? Okay, so that's what we talk about in self-management, how to put disruptive, behaviors under control. And can it be that something that used to annoy you, provoke you some years ago or some months ago, now you have maybe changed, or they do not provoke you, annoy you as they used to, or even at all? What could have happened? Okay, so those are the lines of discussion we will be going into. And yes, your thought matters a lot. We see that the way we think influences our actions. Yeah, we think about something, we feel, and then we act. This organization that called 6 Seconds, they are equally involved in emotional intelligence training, and they do a lot of good work in this area. So they have this process they call think, um, feel, and act, TFL. Yeah, actually, it's just the idea of that process. You have something comes to mind, and then before you know it, you're feeling in a certain way, and then before you know it, it translates to action. So really, our thoughts can be a great influence in the way we respond or do things. It's a very big thing in our society today. Somebody says the um, in our time says people do not behave the way they choose to, rather they want to conform. Everyone wants to be like every other person, and which is really a very big challenge in our world today. People do not design their own life. Their own way of living is based on what every other person around them is doing. If it's a good thing, then that's okay. But we see that we can equally have a situation where everybody is doing things just because no particular reason, just because it's something that is in vogue, even when it doesn't make sense. So those are the type of things we want to call people's consciousness to, that you don't really need to behave in that way. Some of you that have been with me in some other platforms, I've shared certain levels of development that adults do have when it comes to developing their way of reasoning or doing things in their structures. But I'll come back to that at another point. But just briefly, those three levels of adult mental capacity development. You have the socialized mind, where people live a life based on what other people around them do. And then you have the self-actualizing mind, where people get to that level where they have their own views. But the challenge with that is that they are not open to other views. All right, so they just, what they know is what they know. They are not open to considering whether you have the fact to do something differently. But they stick to what they have decided or what they want, which has a level of advantage over the socialized mind. Then you have what we call this um, self-transforming mind, where you have your own views. You believe you know what you know, but you're equally open to a better view. Somebody comes with facts, somebody comes with something that is better than what you have, you can add it to yours. And we see that in our world today, a lot of people are just at that level of socialized mind, where they just look at what is happening around and then be part of it. They don't even get to the self-actualizing, not to talk of self-transforming. So those are the type of challenges we see people face, and it's a problem when people live at that level. They just copy others. Emotional intelligence help you to design your life, know that, recognize what has influenced you to be what you are now, and then opens you up also for making a choice, and then gives you opportunity to maybe go in whichever direction you choose to, particularly when your values are clearly defined. You have chosen who you want to be, what you want to represent, what you want to live for, purpose for living, meaning for living. Right? Then you act consistently in that way, irrespective of whatever other people choose to do. So adults are responsible for their own lives. Just to make this a bit clearer, and to bring it home or closer to every one of us, let's look at some examples of poor self-regulation, right? When this skill of self-regulation, when you are not in control of it, the way it shows up that somebody may need help in this area. Things like, impulsively, quitting a job because your boss upset you, right? Some of these things we'll be mentioning here are part of the things we may discuss sometime in future, where we call signs of emotional immaturity. Yeah, but I will come back to it on another topic or in another room. But signs of poor self-regulation. Yeah, someone quits their job because they are upset. Yeah, you had an issue with your colleague or your boss. You just leave that job. Yeah, so, and you acting based on the way you're feeling now, not taking into consideration. We see this a lot, not just at workplaces. Someone has made a decision. Um, Somebody has made a decision to do a particular thing, long-term plan. Yeah, they know that this is what they want to do. They are happy to do it. Then something happens somewhere along the line. They just forget about the long-term plan they have just because something happened. Somebody made them angry. At this point in time, they throw away everything. Even in relationship, people walk away out of relationship just because they were provoked at a particular time. They are not happy about a particular thing that happened. And when they calm down, they just see that, wow, they shouldn't have made that decision. In workplaces, I see this a lot when it comes to what do you call it now, probation period. Yeah, somebody's probation period after 3 months or 6 months, maybe the company you're working for or has employed you will say, okay, can we extend it or do something? And a lot of people just walk away, not even considering whether what the issue they are raising is something worth looking into. Right. So that's one of the ways when you see yourself walking away, making, urgent or making instant decision, compromising the long-term plan, something that would have been beneficial to you, but just because you're not happy at this point in time, you just don't look into the future plans or the long-term consideration you have taken before making that decision. Okay, so a lot of us can relate with that. Another way of another thing that we see is when people suddenly give up on their dreams after years of hard work, close to what I mentioned earlier on. Yeah, things are not moving on well. Just this thing is not going to work. Those of us in business, you can see that sometimes it takes a while to get things, but then um, if maybe you faced with a challenge, you pull out quickly, then you see that that's also part of it. So I'm just showing us where these things can play out, and this is why emotional intelligence touches every aspect of our life: work, home. Some people can even, yeah, you are very upset at what is happening now, or what has happened now, or this particular thing. Yeah, some of us, you may be kicking out your child, kicking out your spouse, as your spouse out of the house, all those things that you do because something is happening at this point in time. And when you look at it afterwards, you say, well, that was a very big risk. Or you wouldn't have done that ordinarily. You just did that because you're angry or you're feeling a certain way at that particular point in time. I know a lot of us may have a lot to say to all of this, but let's see. I'm just giving us more examples of poor self-regulation when we talk about emotional or self-management. We talk about self-regulation, right? Emotional self-regulation and behavioral self-regulation. I will explain those two shortly, but just to give us more idea of where lack of this particular skill can show up in the things we do. Something like eating, after you are no longer hungry. Yeah, food binging. Yeah, so all of those things can be equally signs of poor self-regulation. Yeah, okay, you have paid for it. Another one could be, committing to something and then you're not able to make it. Yeah, skipping your gym after making plans to go. Right, you can just stick to plan. Yeah, so that could be equally a sign of it. Yeah. Eating unhealthy food, you know that this food is not good for you, but you can just keep yourself away from it. You just love the taste, and that's the attraction, even though you know that it's not good for your health. That's another example. Yeah. Also, the way we react to certain things and certain situations, people telling their boss off, maybe in that particular instant, because of one thing or the other. I've seen some of these things. Your boss comes in, maybe runs in late. I see this in GP surgeries sometimes. The boss runs in late. You don't know what has happened to him or her, but just because people have been waiting for him or her, you just lash out at him or her, and then that's your boss. This person can sack you, can send you off. And these are some of the skills that people, if you don't cultivate it, what we call, delayed gratification. Yeah, you may justify your action to say that you shouldn't have come late, and people have been waiting for you. But then you don't necessarily need that. You are addressing that matter at that point in time doesn't add any value because you don't know what has delayed this person. You don't know what has kept them from getting here by now. You don't know what effort they have made to get here. But just because they say they are coming in by 9 and it's 9:15, people have been waiting, and when he or she comes in, you just lash out, even sometimes in the presence of the patients or other people around, and you just feel good because you're speaking truth to power. So maybe that's maybe the way you think of it, but that's just a very wrong way or immature way of expressing such things that maybe addressing could have waited. We could do it another time. It could have been delayed. It may not be appropriate at that point in time because if the other person struggled to get in and has gone through other challenges and they decide to respond to you at that level, then it might cause other issues. And this person may even decide to say, okay, I've had enough of your confrontation. cantankerous behavior, they need to let you off, right? So speaking or telling of such someone as your boss, your spouse, even sometimes your children in a situation just because you are very angry. Does that then mean I shouldn't express myself? Not exactly. That's not what we are talking about. But I'm using the boss issue where that addressing someone doesn't add any value really, because you are addressing somebody, he or she ran late, you're addressing the matter now. In fact, it's adding to the delay because you are talking instead of them to settling down and getting on with the work. Okay, so as I'm saying this, I believe some of us can relate with some of it, right? Yeah, okay. Sometimes it could equally be, calling up something that has happened in the past, right? And then which may, cause more provocation on the other side if it's not necessary. Just remembering things that happened several years ago, just to add flame to the burning fire. Uh, so those things are equally part of poor self-regulation. Okay. Sometimes it could be in the using of drugs and alcohol as a way of making yourself feel better, right? So those things are also some of us, if you are indulging in such, then that's also equally signs of poor self-regulation. Procrastination is another big one. Yeah. Some of us can be dealing with this in the area of staying up late when we're supposed to be going to bed early, depending on your day, on your their plan for the next day. All of those are equally signs of self-regulation. As you can see here, a lot of us may have something to deal with. And that's the beauty of emotional intelligence. It's not like you just have one score and then you're good at everything. There might be areas, and you're just noticing your own area of improvement, and you challenge yourself to say, I can improve in this area, depending again where you want to go. For some of these things, may not have any. Well, some of them, if it has to do with your work or depend on other people to make decisions based on your reaction, then you don't have a say about that. But in some areas, it might just depend on your lifestyle. Um, it might just be something that is dependent on you. Okay. Right. So staying up too late when you need to go to bed and then maybe have something planned the next day, that's equally a big challenge. It's a sign of poor self-regulation. Spending money poorly. Okay. The way you use your money. Okay, to spend money is equally a sign of poor self-regulation. And then unnecessary spending when you have other goals or things you plan to do. Right. So these are some examples just to get some of us into some of the things we are talking about. So to have an idea of how this shows up in everyday life. Yeah. So those are the type of things we are talking about. The part of the things we want to get people to think of or consider. Right, you can choose, any life you want to live as an adult. It's up to you, right? But then, yeah, is this lifestyle or the choices you are making, are they making you happy or not happy? Because that's what really counts. And if you want to remain unhappy, unfulfilled in life, that's still a choice. But sometimes we have come to see that. Sometimes you find yourself in that position where you have to make a choice between being right and being happy. Yeah, so there are some things you may need to do that you may seem right, like you said, and being seem right here may depend on a lot of things. Again, your values, all the things you have known. There are a lot of things we believe is right, but it's just because of the way we have been trained. Okay, and this is why emotional intelligence is good to learn from people, because you may have been doing something in a particular way, you just believe you are good at this until you see somebody who can challenge you in that area. You think you are patient until you see this person that is so very calm and relaxed in any situation. You are challenged again to say I can improve. All right. So you may do something that you believe you are right. And also the one of thinking of, if I don't do something, this person won't change. They will continue like this, particularly when it comes to dealing with some of us that have children. Right. If I don't respond in the way I'm responding, they will grow up and be, certain way. And this does not mean you can't correct your children, but it's just the way you do it. You're doing it in anger, out of frustration. And just like you rightly said, this action you have taken that you believe is right, where does it leave you? A happy person, unhappy person, frustrated, depressed person, all those things actually the major reason we're talking about these things, because we see people say, okay, using those statements or languages or sentences that takes away power from you. They are very demeaning. When I say I have to, maybe we'll come to this another time. I have to. I must do, or I have to. Yeah. So you find yourself using those languages that are disempowering. Yeah. But we'll come back to some of those in another meeting. But let's focus on this today. It's very important thing there. Do I prefer to, where do I make the choice? Do I choose to be happy? If it's a conflict, it's not all the time. These things don't happen that quickly where you are forced to choose, or you find yourself where you have to choose between being right and being happy, depending on what your values are again. So the action you're taking, these are some of the things, okay, again, I'll touch on before we finish today in terms of what influences our choices in all of these things. All right. So very important. It's up to you. Do I choose to be happy when it conflicts? In very rare occasions, you find your happiness or things you do conflict to be happy or that will make you happy conflicting with your, being right. All right. But if that happens, which one do you want to choose? It's up to you. All right. So some of us may prefer to be right and be frustrated, be unhappy, be unfulfilled. It's up to an adult, but you can choose otherwise. Okay. So very interesting. And also thinking, if I don't do something, which is one of the major reasons people act. If I don't do something, he won't change, she won't change, they won't learn, I won't, all of those thoughts that go on. You see that a lot of reactions we take is not just because of what has been done, but the interpretation we give to it. Right? The interpretation, all those chatter that go on in our head that may not be spoken. We don't verbalize them, but a lot of things that thoughts that go on inside of us that make us say things or do things without even saying them out. Some of these things is equally recognizing even our form of parenting, some of the ways our parents, some of the things our parents may have taught us, some of them we may need to review them and see whether we still need to use them, and some are still valuable, we can still use them, and their parenting style could be different depending on culture, faith, and a lot of other things. Yes, some of us may have not chosen to be brought over here, Europe, and some of us are even not aware of the whole, story of what happened. All we know is that we're here. English is spoken. We speak English because maybe that's language of communication. Some of us still retained the native language, Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, or any other, Swahili or any other language that exists there. But some people didn't, some chose not to. So, okay, I'm fine with English as long as I can communicate with the people around me. And that's, again, an issue of choice, what I'm talking about. For instance, someone may have been brought up here. Your parents chose that teaching you the native language, African native language, is not of any use to you because you may not be using it here, or you rarely go to where it will be of value to you. Now, as an adult, do I want to continue? Do I want to add any other language to the one I know? I've seen young people that grew up here. The parents didn't teach them any other African language. They enrolled themselves in courses to go and learn it, and some of them are doing well. So that's the level of choice. There are things you couldn't change. Some of us couldn't choose which country to be born, what race to be born. And that's the things we want to recognize. These are the big ones, but they are equally unique ones, individual ones. Things that have been handed over to you by reason of your family, by reason of the parents, by reason of the adults we lived with. So just as we are recognizing some of this also, we are saying that really those smaller ones, micro issues can equally be reviewed and see that you have option to make choices. Definitely in life, there are things you cannot control or choose. Then there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah, those things that are beyond your control, or you don't have that option. But there are things you can choose. You can, as an adult, you can decide which way to go. Okay, so let's look at these two types of regulation. From where we are coming from, we talked about self-management, self-awareness, and we're talking about self-management. And then when we talk about self-management, we say self-management or self-regulation, yeah, and or self-control. So we use those words interchangeably in this context. So we have what we call behavioral self-regulation or control. That's a way of keeping disruptive emotions and impulses in check. Yeah. The ability to make decisions and act in your long-term self-interest in accordance with your values. That's a very good one. A lot of us are familiar with that. I want to have set my values. I know what I want, and then I want to act. And that's what where the training in this area brings people, right? Where you take action that is in line with your values, irrespective of how you are feeling at that point in time. However, you are feeling when you took that decision. You're always making decision based on, your values, the things you believe. And these are some of the ways we have seen that we can use to help people. Sometimes when people are faced with emotionally challenging situation, you may not have that time to process all the pros and cons at that point in time. But if your values are defined, who you want to be, who you have chosen to be is defined, then you don't need to think so much to make a decision. Some decisions are already made. When we come back to this, I can give examples of that, particularly some of the recent things that have been happening in our world all around us in terms of people acting in a certain way because certain things happened or because people behaved in a certain way. Okay, so behavioral self-regulation or self-control is a big one. We are very familiar with that. But also we have what we call emotional self-regulation or self-control, the ability to control or influence your emotions, right? The way you feel, even the way of feeling. And that's why I've said at some point that someone asked, could it be that someone have found themselves in a situation where something used to make you angry or provoke you or make you feel a certain way, but now such a thing doesn't happen anymore. So what happened? And some of these things are some of the things that people can, improve on. You can improve on your emotional self-regulation or self-control. You can improve on behavioral self-regulation or control. So note those to emotional self-regulation or self-control, the ability to control or influence your emotions, right? Because sometimes what prompts people, or what people say, I can't control the way I feel. Well, sometimes you can in certain ways if you train yourself in that area, which is really the reason behind some of the work, the people who started maybe this idea of emotional intelligence or brought up the theory were saying that just as we have, we can train ourselves to improve on certain skills cognitively, we can equally improve on our emotional skills, our ability to respond or the way we see things.